Happy Monday. I'm Sam Basil, joined alongside Trevor Everett, Michael DeRosa, and Will Tondo for the House of College Hoops National Championship pregame show. I can't believe we're already here. It's the last day of the 2023-24 men's college basketball season. We've already had a fantastic week of men's and women's hoops. Just so much great stuff to talk about, so much great stuff that we saw, and one more game that we get to preview before it's all over. So, guys, hope you had a great weekend. How's everybody feeling? How excited are we to watch UConn versus Purdue?
It's gonna be happy fun. Sad. Yeah. Happy sad. It's kind of weird that, basketball is over. I mean, it's something that we obviously cover all year round across all the podcasts, all the writers, the entire channel as a whole. And, I do want to thank not only everyone on House who did such an incredible job this year, but obviously everyone who hopped on shows, read the post, favorited, liked, tweet, followed along. It was definitely special to see grow. And I thought our team did an incredible job, but it's I kind of am a firm believer of, I think the national championship should be on a Sunday, because I'm already feeling like the basketball hangover today and the game hasn't even happened yet. I'm also a believer that the game at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time is kind of horseshit. Little too late for my liking. I'm getting a little bit older. It's a work day, school night. I don't want to be up till midnight watching UConn beat the shit out of Purdue by 20. But other than that, we're feeling good. I'm excited.
Yeah, the tip-off time is always a little bit tough. I feel like moving it to Sunday could, help alleviate some of that. But we're here, so we're ready for it. But before we get into our picks for tonight's game, I kind of wanted to do a little bit of a recap on everything else we saw this weekend, starting off with Friday's women's Final Four. South Carolina took down NC State 78-59, and then Iowa took down UConn at a last-minute, 71-69 in a very controversial last-minute offensive foul call. I feel like the initial reaction on Twitter, people were not happy about it. Whether or not people thought it was a foul, they felt like it was a bad time to call it. It felt like the conversation got a little bit more, varied as the weekend went on leading up to the game. But since we're here and we're talking about it, I just want to, just put a pin on it. What were your guys' thoughts on UConn, Iowa?
I'll go first. That game was a ton of fun. It was really fun to watch. Like, Caitlin Clark and Paige are both excellent players, and I thought they defended Caitlin Clark really well. Like, do you seeing there were some videos I saw on Twitter afterwards, like of the UConn staff being like, "No, keep her on the side, like setting doubles, icing screens." That was really interesting. I thought that was it was a really fun game from that perspective. And I was also one of the people who originally was really mad at the call. Then I saw the replay, like the fake replay ESPN show didn't show shit. Then I saw like the real replay of like where Aaliyah Edwards' base was like, instead it should have been like this. Instead it was like that, where you can't see my hands on camera now, because that means it's an illegal screen. So I hate siding with the refs. I am anti-ref in general. That said, the refs got that one right.
Yeah, it was tough. I understand the whole timing debate and all that kind of stuff, but I mean, you watch the replay and again, it's like, I know DeRosa. I mean, I don't feel like I constantly am anti-ref, but I've definitely found myself very frustrated with officials sometimes. But it's hard to get too mad at an official for calling a pretty blatant offensive foul correctly. Anybody else have any strong thoughts on it?
What's crazy is like, and I think it was I think it was Road to the Garden Zone. I think it was Thomas that tweeted this. It may have not been, but I want to give somebody proper credit for it. But when your feet are wider than your shoulder, it's an illegal screen. That is verbatim written in all levels of basketball's rule book. And I was like, well, and I don't love the argument of if you can't call that in the first minute, why would they call it in 39? Like, I hate that. If it's a foul, it's a foul. Call it. Like, let the other chips fall the way they fall. I get it, but it's tough. The whole like overarching thought of the legacy of what Caitlin Clark is, for at least the championship game's sake, of course, I really wanted it for the sake of her legacy to age, but ultimately she helped bring women's basketball to a place it's never been. So ultimately, whether South Carolina won, I think the better team won. I think the right team won. And I think, honestly, all results led to the right thing, where Caitlin Clark still made a huge impact on women's basketball, and South Carolina still got to hold up the ring 37-0. I mean, it's crazy to think. I know it's happened before, but just this team felt like another level, and the fact that Iowa really did challenge them shows how good she really was.
Yeah, and
if I can comment real quick, Sam, I agree with you, Trevor. I hear you. I am siding more with what Gino Auriemma said after the game, which was there's about 4 plays right before that you could have called an illegal screen on, though. It happens all the time, right? So it's where's the line? Yes, it was probably a foul. I don't disagree with it, but if we're calling it, then we got to call it on almost every possession. So I agree. That was my big issue.
If that's the one they called, and they should have called the one in the moment, and I'm not saying they shouldn't have called the ones before. I'm just glad they called the one in the moment that ultimately ended up being an important one.
Yeah, that's fair. I think you made a good point, though, Trevor. It's like the better team won. The better team won this entire thing, right? I think Dawn Staley, she was already there. She was already on this. She was already in that circle. But now, with 3 rings, she's an elite company. I mean, you have to look at Dawn Staley's legacy now as in that same level as Muffet McGraw, as Tara Vanderveer, as Gino, as Pat Summitt, right? As Andy Landers, all these other major coaches that have had great success at this level. I mean, Dawn Staley's right up there with them, right? Could she be top 1 ever? Maybe. She might be in that realm, but time will have to tell. She's earned the right to be in that discussion now of that elite upper echelon bracket. So congrats to Coach Staley, because that was a major marquee win for her.
I don't want to be in the realm of like the men's game is significantly better, and like going to the men's game would be like an abject promotion, because like Gino could have made the transition 100 times and he's chosen not to. There's a reason for that. He just likes coaching there. That said, if there is any woman who is going to lead a basketball team now or in the next few years, a college basketball team at least, I think Dawn Staley is the number 1 choice far and away. And I think she would, I'm very confident she would be a winner very quickly.
I mean, there was people floating out the idea, people that I think we all trust and respect and are credible, and I'm not going to go through the laundry list of people that throw this out there, but there are programs, not Kentucky specifically, but just there are programs that should be making that call. Like, make her say no 3 times. Yep. 1, okay, maybe, sure, all right, the game's over, now I got to start recruiting. All right, maybe a second no, but that third no, if she says it a real third time, sure. But they at least need to be making that call. And again, I know the Kentucky thing and how crazy it's been is still floated out there. I know we'll talk about that, but I don't care if it's Kentucky. Like, any program that feels like they're in a position to try to take them to the next level and at least try to, we know how big of a transition that's going to be. The same conversation came up when Becky Hammon was potentially taking NBA jobs, right? It was like, okay, is she really going to be able to be a person that could do that? And I still believe that. And I still think Dawn Staley could at least have a chance to try it. Obviously, she's got to think about what if it doesn't go right? What is the legacy? And that's all these coaches, like, they do all think about it, whether we think they do or not. And I know that that's something she's probably in the back of her head thinking about, but she's ultimately in a great position to continue to build South Carolina. And I don't see her going anywhere for a really long time. I know that that's been said many times, but I'd be shocked if she ever went anywhere else. Like, again, the Gino example.
Trevor, you mentioned something about impact with Caitlin Clark, and obviously she had a huge impact on this championship game. 30 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists. But obviously, they didn't come away. I would not come away with the win. They got outscored by 10 points in the second quarter by South Carolina. I feel like that was really kind of a big momentum swing. Where do you think South Carolina won this game? Was it in that second quarter, or was it something that they had sustained throughout the entire game that allowed them to kind of come away with the national championship?
As someone who went out in public and watched with other fans on Friday, to watch them absolutely put their hands around the women of NC State around their throat in the third quarter, my easy answer would be, well, there's a quarter where they took control of the game. For this one, it was the second quarter, right? They're a really good third quarter team. They were a team that would absolutely just put their foot on people's throat, and that was where they would take things over. I think they won the game in the second quarter. They won the second quarter 29-19. That really gave them the momentum. I've always said it many times for those that have read the the live game reports, like the final 4 minutes and the first 4 minutes of the other men's games specifically covering it, of those halves are so important, and that's where South Carolina really can take control of the momentum, and I really think that's what helped them win the game.
Yeah, absolutely. So putting a pin on that, great season, a historic season for NCAA women's basketball, and again, we can continue that momentum like we talked about in the Final Four preview show. There's going to be so much talent heading into this year's WNBA draft exactly a week from today. So that's going to be really fun to check out. Going back a day from the women's national championship game, let's talk about the men's Final Four. Game 1, sorry, Trevor, your Wolfpack were 0-2 this weekend as Purdue took down NC State 63-50. What about this Purdue team allowed them to put this NC State miracle run to bed?
Someone else go, because I watched half of this game on Hillsborough Street standing on a brick wall and basically on the shoulders of other college students around me. Like it was an uncomfortable experience. And then I sat on the floor of the students, or on the ground of the student center lawn trying to watch the second half. And then I walked away for the final 4 minutes. I walked away and left. So I'm not a great person to answer this question. I just want to be upfront about that. I did go back and watch some of it, but the pain wasn't good.
You're nothing if not honest, and
respect
appreciate it. That's a respectable take. Michael, you want to go before I do, or anybody else? Or
I guess look, if you want me to speak first, I'll speak first.
Sure, go ahead.
All right,
lead us off with a heavy hitter. That's my angle.
Absolutely. Then everyone else who actually knows what they're talking about can talk. I thought Purdue's defense was actually pretty good in this game. They forced DJ Horn, made a ton of those long twos, but that Zach Edey guy was able to guard DJ Burns pretty effectively. And what they did, I thought was pretty smart. Actually, it wasn't something I would have thought of, but they had TKR on Burns quite a bit, and then they'd have Edey rotate over and help and really just put his hands up, and that was enough. You have 2 guys on him, and then Burns wouldn't be able to make a lot of those loop passes because Edey's just right there. And then the 4 they had, Diarra isn't he's a fine, you don't really want to leave him open, but he's not a great shooter. And then I thought the guards did their job. I thought Lance Jones was very good, and they really just forced DJ Horn to beat them with long twos, and he wasn't going to do that. And really anyone else couldn't get going. And then that Zach Edey guy was just kind of a problem. And then once Edey figured out how he would able to go against a double team with kicking it and then kick a couple shooters hitting shots, that was enough. You had a bad Braden Smith game, but it didn't really matter.
Yeah, and that was sort of that was going to be my point, Michael. Braden Smith was, he was just awful shooting, but I think his effort everywhere else sort of tells the story of this Purdue game, right? Because Purdue out-rebounded NC State 41-28, and one of the smallest guys on the court grabs 8 boards against a team with DJ Burns and with a couple other big guys. So I don't know, that sort of tells the story about this game for Purdue for me. You're not doing something good. If you're not making shots, you got to do something else. That's what good teams do. And Braden Smith's out there collecting boards. He's given 6 assists. And then they get a complimentary basketball effort from Lance Jones, who's got 14, and Lawyer hit a couple of big shots throughout this one. So, I think an atrocious shooting Braden Smith game, but that's a sign of a good team. They just pick up the slack elsewhere. They were getting hustle balls. Even though they turned the ball over 16 times, it felt like Purdue was efficient with their possessions. I don't know. Did anyone else get that sense? It just felt like when they were going down the floor, they weren't going to turn the ball over. So that's what impressed me about Purdue. That's what a bit worries me about tonight, potentially, is that they're going to take good care of the ball. They're going to pass it. They're going to try to get boards. Thought it was domination, though, from Purdue.
I had those exact same notes for tonight, though, in terms of if Braden Smith has a terrible shooting night and they are turning over the ball, UConn is going to mop them. You can get away with that on, and again, no discredit to NC State for their Final Four. I wanted the upset more than anybody else, probably just like you, Trevor. If they had a bad shooting night from one of their leading scorers and can still win by 15, that's great now. That doesn't help for you against UConn.
So, and look, I have some stats to credit, to show you how, I know we'll get to predictions later, so I'm not going to try to step on my own thoughts for later, but to show you how big of a chance Purdue really does have, the Pac defense held Purdue to 63 points, which was their season low, 40% from the field, which was their second lowest this season, and forced 16 turnovers, which was their second most this season, right? Purdue showed up, they made shots, they won through adversity, which, look, I get that they're going to be a 6.5-point underdog tonight, but they were able to do what they needed to do to win against State, regardless of what the run was. Like, when you get that far in the tournament, let's just say Elite Eight at that point, just throw the seeds out the window. We clearly have learned that over the last few years. It's just the numbers don't matter anymore, like the story and the thought of what the team was. But like once that team figured itself out in, I don't know, say after Michael O'Connor hits a 35-footer and banks it in, right? Basically from that moment on, their entire world changed, right? That was like the thing that sent them into the next realm to say, we are getting this thing done. Did myself as a constructive person think that was possible? Absolutely not. But the point is they were able to do things that made Purdue uncomfortable. Again, I know some of the shooting slumps there. Not all of it was perfect defense, but the game plan, UConn's going to have to figure all that out with Ekiti. Again, we'll get that later. But at the end of the day, they did what they could to put Purdue in a position and ultimately produce that good of a team, and that's why they're there, and they have the best player on the floor, and that's ultimately what made the difference.
Yeah. And before we get into, our thoughts on the second game of the night, I just wanted to wrap up NC State's season with, now that we've seen this team, this was kind of their finale. But after a run like they've had, I mean, there's always a lot of questions, right, for any team that has that kind of comes out of nowhere late in the season. In how do they maintain this momentum? Where do they build from here? So, Trevor, if I could kind of put you in the seat of Kevin Keats for just a minute, how do you take NC State's ACC championship and Final Four run into the offseason, into the transfer portal, or just into the recruiting world to try and sustain this success?
So the beauty of all of this, this is kind of I'm going to go and be up front and say I don't have the perfect answer for anyone. And the reason I'll say that is because they already have done that, right? Kevin Keats was asked right before the Final Four, like or right before the Elite Eight game, one or the other, and was like, what are you guys doing? I think they were having recruits in the week they were preparing for the Final Four, right? And that doesn't put any excuses out there for anything, because every team I think was probably in that realm, right? Assistants make those calls all the time. They brought in Brandon Huntley Hatfield from Louisville, right? Former 5-star. Before they even made the Final Four. It was like the day before or the day after, something like that. My point is they're already doing this stuff, right? They're already taking this incredible run and flipping some of these guys that, again, Pat Kelsey, has probably one of the best recruiters and talkers in the world right now, and could probably bring anybody in, able to bring in somebody like that who's, I'm surprised, honestly, didn't stay with the program. It's kind of a two-part answer, though. It's going to make your life harder. When you sent me this originally, I was like, okay, I want to come up with a concise thought that maybe like they're just going to build upon it, right? It's something that hasn't happened, and a lot of fans are going to look at it from, and I'm trying to be an honest journalist, but at the end of the day, fans are going to look at it like this. They're going to say, well, at least my generation is going to say, hey, this is something that, see you again in 40 years, right? We've already heard those jokes, but like this is something that can be built upon. Kevin Keats, as we know, is a guy that has worked his way up from Hargrave Military Academy. He was a Rick Pitino assistant all over the place. UNCW had some great success, right? So we know he can do what he's capable of doing, which, again, turning this team around and making those decisions. The problem is when you lose your best assistant, Joel Justice, tonight, literally an hour before this podcast, he's going off and he's going to be with the Ohio State basketball program. I just found that out. I already had this whole answer prepared, and I had like what I was going to say, and then I'm like, well, that's going to counteract a lot of the stuff I'm going to say. So my point is you still have to go through adversity. You still have to figure out what you're going to do. Ultimately, he's going to find an assistant that he trusts. There's a well of guys out there that he's coached with that I'm sure he'll be able to bring up and believe in. And ultimately, look, as much as important as Justice was to the recruiting trail, they'll be able to figure it out. This is something that you can tell recruits and say, we've made the Final Four. We're going to retool. This is how we're going to bring you in. DJ Horn, guy that bounced all over the country from Raleigh. There's a ton of talent here in local North Carolina. He's going to continue to figure it out. Obviously, it's not something that if they don't turn around and win 19 games, 22 games next year, has it been considered a failure? Sure. Like maybe, but at the end of the day, this is something, to answer your question, I don't have a great answer to the overarching what needs to change or what could happen, but ultimately they can use this and they can build upon it, and that's something that I think probably will happen.
Yeah, that was a fantastic answer, and I totally agree that, especially as you're saying, there's moves happening in between our texts to plan this show and me asking the question. Like, everything's moving in college basketball, and everything for the next there you go, right there. Everything for the next 4 or 5 months now is just only going to continue to move even further. So who knows where NC State's program is going to be in the next 7 months? I mean, we hope it's going to be in a good place, but you never know. That's gonna wrap it up for that part. Let's get into the second game in which UConn took down Alabama 86-72. It felt like after only leading by 4 points in the first half, there was finally a team that was forcing UConn to kind of play it close. But as Tondo and I were talking about earlier today, were we kind of fooled? Is it more of kind of like when you watch like a cat catch a mouse and they kind of let it they play with it for a little while before going into the kill? Tondo, is that kind of what you were seeing in the second half of Alabama UConn?
Listen, I was very impressed with Alabama right off the gate. Heading into that game, I was like, okay, we're going to have a matchup. And then the second half happened, and I don't know what Hurley said, or he probably came in and was just like, all right, let's turn this on. And I was mentioning to Basil, it really reminded me of the final game of the regular season, Providence against UConn. Providence came out super hot. It was obviously a more meaningful game for Providence over UConn. And then second half came around and Dan Hurley said, watch this, and flipped off a fan and then won by 30. So it was I wasn't surprised towards the end. And I truthfully think that's a performance we might see today with UConn.
Yeah. Donovan Clingan, 18 points, 8 for 14 from the field, all of it in the arc. Again, I think we're going to get a great matchup between him and Zach Edey tonight. But how, if you're a team that doesn't have a guy like Zach Edey, how do you stop something like that?
Well, here's the formula. You got to get Clingan to play more than 30. I think that's the magic tonight. Like, you have to have, and maybe it's not just as simple as that. You need heroic efforts from Clingan and Samson Johnson tonight, though. I'm reading a stat from The Athletic, and this is a great catch by Scott Phillips here. Clingan needs to push past 30 minutes of playing time tonight, he says, a feat the sophomore only accomplished 3 times this year. Zach Edey missed 3 minutes out of 120 in this tournament.
Wow.
So that's the difference right there. I mean, you got to get your big guy that Hurley has been raving about. He said, he knows what the challenge is. We think he's prepared for it. But it's unlike anybody he's faced. He's faced Kalkbrenner this year. He's faced Joel Soriano. None of them compare to to Zach Edey, right? So you need heroic efforts from Clingan and Samson Johnson. I think that's what you need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about Alabama, to kind of wrap up their season, it felt like this Final Four run, in a similar way to Purdue, was it felt like a little bit of a redemption for 2023, right? I don't think a lot of us were expecting Alabama to get to the Final Four this year. A lot of us were expecting them to get there last year, but in this really, really tough SEC, with Kentucky being really good, Auburn winning the whole thing, it was kind of a shock with the other teams that they took down. So, how do you put a cap on this 2023-24 tied season? And where can Alabama go next from here? Especially now, as we've been seeing with all the changes that might be going on in some other SEC opponents.
So I'll be short and sweet because Michael DeRosa knows this, is doing mini pods with me, that I was the biggest Alabama hater out of the 5 of us. I would be surprised if there was anybody like my point was that I just didn't believe that the defense could string enough stops together in enough of these games that somebody was going to clip them. Like, it was just going to, whether that was Grand Canyon, which again, play that game 9 times or 10 times. I'm not sure the result. Yeah, I don't know. Again, not going to speculate, but the point being is this moving forward for this team. Obviously we know Nate Oates has been thrown out there for a million of jobs, but I know that can change on a dime, but I'm going to trust that there are people like Matt Norlander that talk to him after the game, and it seems like he really wants to stay there and build the winning program in Alabama, and this is something that's going to continue to be a great step. We know he's an incredible talent recruiter. I just hope that Nate Oates, I know he's an analytics guy, I know he's an offense guy. I hope he looks at this team and realizes, like, maybe they were lacking in a couple areas. Maybe it's defensively, the bigs, right? The bigs I know was something that eventually was ultimately something that was their downfall. Maybe that they find a shift in how they recruit. Maybe it's no, we just doubled down on what we did because it got us to the Final Four. I don't know, but I know Tide fans are excited. And at the end of the day, yeah, at the end of the day, shout out to Grayson for being supportive on my show and all the shows that we do here. But at the end of the day, this Alabama team, I like the way they're built. Even if you're not an analytics person, even if you're not all into that environment and that argument, Nate Oates has clearly bought into that, and it's clearly worked for them. And I also think give credit to where credit's due. They loaded their schedule up. I said that many times, even as a hater. I said they've put themselves in positions to potentially win these big games, and they kept doing it. At the beginning of the year, they played a ton of really good competition, and lost a lot of those games. So it put themselves in a position to be prepared, and I hope that they continue to do that. Not that the SEC is not going to help them, but those non-con games really did help Alabama this year, and I hope moving forward they continue to do that.
Do you think it's sustaining the success and finally getting to the Final Four for a guy like Nate Oates? And again, this is a narrative that I don't necessarily believe in, but I feel like people talk about it a lot. In that Nate Oates was also trying to, he was trying to win for his own team, but he was also trying to prove to maybe the Alabama athletic department, whether it be a funding issue or whatever, that Alabama can be a basketball school instead of being, football focused. Do you also believe in that narrative? And if so, do you feel like Nate Oates kind of achieved that with this Final Four run?
I'm going to need you to repeat that, please. Did you say that that's people are saying Alabama won't be a football school?
No. They're saying, excuse me, that Alabama, it's unnecessary for Alabama to pursue success in basketball because we're a football school. People say vice versa when Duke football has a good year. It's like, we're a basketball school anyway.
I mean, yeah, Alabama's always going to be a football school. Like, that's never going to change. But, I mean, look, we saw how much it meant to some people that their basketball program was succeeding. And I feel like once you get the Final Four and the hype of that, we'll see how the university responds to it. But, like, if you got a coach as sharp as Nate Oates, you do whatever you can to keep him. That dude is going to be a problem every single year. He's just too sharp. So if they lose him, I think it changes, but don't lose him.
I will say this. If there was ever, I don't care if this gets aggregated, if there was ever a time for basketball at Alabama to mean more than football, it's right now.
Dude,
it's a final. I know. I said that at the beginning, right? Like, if there was ever a time, it's a Nate Oates led Final Four run followed up by maybe a really good season. Like, that really is going to matter. Like, what really good season follows, where they're in the first year of a transition with a new head coach. And I'm so far removed from what football happened. I remember who took over the head coach position, and that probably should tell you something.
Yeah.
Silence, right? Like, nobody, like, we all just had to think, right?
Kalen DeVore, but
thank you. I knew the name if you'd give me a few tries, but like the fact that right now if there was ever a time for basketball to be the exciting thing on campus and continue to be until football starts, I mean, and figure out I don't know. If there was
it's
ever
just
a time,
added fun for these people. That's it. 100%. It's not like, it's whatever. They're riding the high, and then the second, regardless of whatever happened in that game, I mean, they're in football mode now. Let's be very clear, because they know that Nate Oates is going to get a boatload of cash, truckloads from that school in Lexington. 100%. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, but you say that, and you know what's crazy? If UConn, again, the historic program they are, the new blood, potential back-to-back championships, the university still thinks they're a football school.
What, UConn?
Yeah.
Oh, they divested. They're done. They've embraced this. They spend more in basketball than they spend on football now. Did you see that chart the other day?
Yeah, but what happens when they move to the Big 12 and then,
come on.
Hey,
I don't know.
I think it would be stupid in the next 5 to 7 years, the UConn Huskies will be in the Big 12.
I'm going to give you a hot take. I think there's better odds of Hurley being the Kentucky head coach than there is that. I really do believe that.
Look it up. They were already having chatters about it last year.
I don't know.
Hey,
that's just my
UConn might not be the team doing it. The Creighton, everybody saw the Creighton baseball thing, right? That was really dumb. I mean, it may have just been like an accident, but I don't know. I'm not at work in these marketing departments, but for those that look confused or might be confused on YouTube, like the Creighton baseball team posted a photo of holding up a baseball for an announcement for a game, and on the front of the baseball said Big 12. I was like,
not good.
I was like, what? I'm gonna check that. I'll find the photo while we're doing the ad read.
Well, while Trevor finds that, let's actually take some time to talk about our partners for all of this past month. Our friends over at Rhythm. You already know March is filled with unpredictability and thrilling upsets, but what if AI could help you navigate the chaos and win some bets? Enter Rhythm, the AI sports betting app for player props and game picks. Rhythm stands at the forefront of innovation, offering sports enthusiasts a cutting-edge tool to elevate their college basketball betting experience. The app leverages data sets, historical trends, player statistics, and more to help craft the perfect picks for you. If you head to the link in our bio and on house-enterprise.com, don't forget that dash, you can sign up for free to find a set of picks perfectly tailored for you to conquer March. Filter Rhythm suggestions by teams, props, and more to help create the perfect picks that fit your fandom. Download Rhythm, that's spelled RITHMM. Create your account, find your perfect picks, and win big. Disclaimer, House Enterprise and Rhythm are not responsible for any lost wages on picks you make. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER. Thank you again to our friends at Rhythm. There goes everybody. Thank you again to our friends at Rhythm. Obviously, tonight is the last night that you can use Rhythm to, make a college basketball pick, but they're running into the spring and summer with NBA stuff and plenty more on the way. So make sure you check it out in the link on our website whenever you feel like it. Let's get into, so we've got two finalists. Oh, did you find it?
I did. I just wanted to put it out there in case people hadn't seen it. I have it right here. Here, I'll even just do this so the YouTube audience has a great time with this. So you should see on my screen. I don't know if I can zoom in. It will let me. There we go. There it is. Big 12 right there. There's a Big 12 logo on that baseball. Again, total sidetrack. There it is. There's a better view for you. That's a Big 12 logo right there in the middle of a Creighton baseball ad.
Laziest Photoshop ever.
I just don't understand how. Again, it could be Photoshop, but he had to hold the baseball to take the photo. I don't know.
If any school wants to pay me to make slightly better photoshops than that, I got you.
Just slightly. That's a hell of a sell job.
Yeah, I'm not setting the expectations too high.
Just ever so slightly. Just put a big white square over it.
That just feels like, that feels like that was taken maybe on like a road trip, or that's just like what the equipment room had in the really weird.
Yeah, the equipment room got their shipment of Big 12 baseballs for next year.
Yeah.
Creighton Twitter was
actually UConn's UConn's baseballs got sent there.
That's funny.
That was a good callback. That was an incredible.
Well, let's get into our final portion of the night, which is previewing the national championship game between UConn and Purdue. And before we do, I want to thank our 300 live viewers right now, 306 actually, across all platforms on Facebook, YouTube, X. Thank you so much for watching, and let's keep going. Let's get into our final game of the night. It's going to be a very interesting one. I think UConn right now is, I believe, favored by 6.5 points. The fact that it's within single digits, I mean, I think it's just people being nice because it's a national championship game. But for you guys, does this feel like a single-digit game, or is this another one where UConn could keep it close maybe in the first half and then just start to run away with it in the second? Tondo, you're shaking your head. Are you feeling Huskies all the way here?
Responsibly on the DraftKings Sportsbook, I have them winning by 10+.
Wow.
Yeah, I do think it's a matchup where it's the final stone yet again for Mr. Dan Hurley in this Infinity Stone Gauntlet, and the way they've played in their non-conference schedule, the way they've played in the Big East schedule, the way they've played in this tournament, I just think that they're on the path of dominant success. And I think it'll probably be another score like they had the past couple of days against Alabama, high 80s to low 70s.
All right.
Can I ask a question to follow up to that? Because here's I don't think I've ever heard a consistent argument, and anybody can answer this, but if Will, just to think about the 10+ thing for a second. If Klingon gets 2 fouls early, like say he picks them up with, I don't know, in the first 6 minutes of the first half, right? What I'm trying to figure out how to word this. If Klingon picks up fouls early and Edie just goes to town, and he has like 24 in the first half or something stupid like that, right? Like, what is UConn's pushback there? Like, what is UConn's ability to not be like? Is this a game that eventually they can pull away, even if that happens?
So I'm going to jump in just to say the point I was going to make on this game was solely that if Klingon gets 2 fouls in the first 5, 6, whatever minutes, and UConn fans are on Twitter complaining about the refs, we got a game here. If he doesn't, we don't. If he does, we got a game here. We're like, this is a game. So you stole my main point from me. Thanks a lot, Trev.
It wasn't even a point of my main point will blow you away in a minute, but it kind of relates to this later. I just don't understand, like, whether there is an argument or not, like, that's the thing that's going to change everything. Like, we can all sit here and agree that, like you just brought up. Like, at the end of the day, UConn's going to have to find a way to be consistent with Tristan. Not that by the way, I think they win by 10+2. Let me put that out at the very beginning. Like, let me make that clear. However, if Klingon gets in foul trouble, regardless of the minutes thing, which I think all of this ties together when Jake brought up the minutes thing earlier, which I think is a great point. I just can't figure out, like, as much as I love some of the backup bigs and some of the options that they have, Zach Edey is going to be the best player on the floor in this game, probably for all 40 minutes. And how UConn can go through that adversity, I think, is something that they are well tested for. But how they do it is what I'm trying to figure out, and still haven't. And we're, 40 minutes from this game being played.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. For me, Trevor, it's we're trying to evaluate UConn's sort of battle testedness for this, and I think obviously everybody would agree they've proven to a degree they're ready for this matchup, right? They're ready to stop the several weapons that Purdue has. I think this just comes down to the sheer quantity of weapons that exist on the floor, right? I think Edey's the best player on the floor by and large, but I think you're asking me who's been the most consistent, and as far as depth goes, I don't think there's a better team in the past couple of tournaments than this UConn team. I mean, all 5 starters you can count on them for 10, 12, 14 points every night. And that, to me, I just haven't seen it with Purdue. You see Braden Smith, to Will's point, go ice cold the other day. You see Lawyer huck up a couple and then stop hucking them. Like, yeah, Purdue, I'm not trying to take this away from them. They find other stuff to do. They make the hustle plays. They get the rebounds. They start facilitating. But UConn it seems that they've never had that issue. Everybody's bringing it every night. Cam Spencer's putting up like 14, 15 points a game in the tournament. So, I don't know. For me, that's where I draw the line. It's whose depth has been more consistent, who's going to bring it every single night, and it's been the UConn Huskies easily.
Yeah, I mean, to echo that, it's like I don't have a response to necessarily the foul troubles, but if Edey and Klingon are a wash where they just cancel each other out, I'm still taking UConn. Yeah.
So and my overarching point was going to be that Samson Johnson has to be incredible tonight. Like, if the foul trouble happens, he's going to be the difference. He leads UConn in dunks. He's an athletic freak that runs the floor like a freaking deer, that, with good 4 feet. Like, he just runs the floor really well. And obviously, he's going to be thrusted into that role where, okay, Klingon's in foul trouble. They play him in spurts. We know Hurley's an incredible coach, so they're going to figure out how to utilize those minutes really well. But I think Samson is going to be the biggest X factor. I would love to find like some props or whatever. None of them spoke to me, but at the end of the day, like, he's going to be so important.
One thing that Jake, you brought up here, specifically with guys like Fletcher Lawyer, right? I've been watching some tape on Zach Edey, and I've been watching. There were a lot of really interesting points that Matt Painter made in the press conference ahead of NC State. Was he loves the way that Edey can space the floor and kind of draw the attention of defensive plays to him before, honestly, not even touching the ball, and then creating just an open lane just by just getting eyes on him for a guy like Fletcher Lawyer to drive in. Aside from UConn's star power on the offensive end, how can they defensively either, prevent Edey from drawing too much attention to himself, or forcing the game entirely through Edey so that when they try to go somewhere, when Purdue tries to go somewhere else, it's just not working?
It's a damn good question. It's one that I don't really have the answer to be honest, right? Like the UConn perimeter D, I feel like has played pretty well. I don't really have any stats to back that up, but I feel like the biggest test they got was Alabama, who was sinking shots left and right yesterday. Again, I say that with no data in front of me. I do not know what Bama shot from three. If anybody's got that, you could interrupt me. But the completeness sort of goes back to the depth that they have, right? Like not only are these guys freeing themselves up, like Tristan Newton's getting hot, Alex Karaban's getting hot at any point, they're playing solid defense, right? Like Karaban's a big dude. He's 6'7", 6'8". He can still go against some of these bigger guys and play a lockdown D, right? Newton has been a total complete point guard this whole year. He's held the ball. He's facilitated. He's been a lights out shooter when he needs to be. He's played really good defense too. So, I mean, like, that's the obvious answer is you get these guys buzzing really quickly. You get them defending whatever ball screen that Purdue's going to throw your way. I guess that's how you force them to go to Edey, but they're going to have to do that anyway, right? They're going to have to, like, if I'm Matt Painter, I'm not a basketball coach. I don't know the first thing about technical basketball. If I'm Matt Painter, I'd be testing Klingon early. That's my first priority is try to get him into some foul trouble, right? And then after that, then you can worry about trying to space the floor out and all this stuff. Just see where that gets you is priority number one.
100%. And if not, then I think if they come out really fast and get a couple of threes early, that'll really tighten the game up first. Like, even if it's not, say they neutralize Edey and Klingon very well, say that happens and they're like, that UConn maybe was prepared for that. They probably are. They're probably thinking, okay, this is probably what they're going to try to do. And if Purdue can counter with like a couple Lawyer threes, Smith threes here and there, even like a Jones, like if those guys can get going very quickly, this game gets real good real quick. Like in that first 5 minutes, if Purdue, especially from deep, can take control of something, it's going to be really interesting. The other thing to think about, House Enterprises' own Zach Penrice, who's in attendance, just posted a photo 3 minutes ago. And he's exaggerating. It's 50-1 ratio for Purdue fans tonight. And he took a photo and it looks black and whatever that color of gold is. Okay. It is very, very, like, I'm with him. Like, it's crazy. The only thing that breaks up that color scheme is the red seats. Other than that, it's really hard to tell. Obviously, I'm just exaggerating here a little bit with him, but they get that control early, and it goes back to my point. Those threes go in early. Think about like the way that's going to be versus like if Edey dunks it. Somebody made this point. I wish I could give him credit, but like the way the crowd gets into the game if Edey dunks it versus if like the threes start going in, right? Like the way the crowd will really buy into that. I think if that happens early, it's going to feel really tight, really fast.
Yeah, Purdue, I will say the one area that they solidly have over UConn, and UConn's got a hell of a fan base too. Purdue brings it, man. They freaking bring it.
I really am.
It's unbelievable. Every single game. I forgot where their was it Detroit that their the regional was?
Yeah, I think so.
Unbelievable. I mean, that there was a small sliver of Tennessee fans in that last game in the Elite Eight. Probably, I don't know, making this up. Little Caesars Arena, 18,000 capacity. It's probably 16,000 Purdue. Unbelievable showing, and that's the one area that it's not worth nothing. It's worth something in that building tonight.
I mean, my question though is, I feel like even as a team that's just been beating down on their opponents all year long and all tournament long, it feels like that's exactly the kind of environment that Dan Hurley wants to create for his team, right? Like mentally, emotionally, that is the type of environment that UConn wants to be in. So where do you feel like that can help them a little bit?
Yeah, I can hear Hurley now pulling them aside, like right before after Gene Honda announces the lineups for the last time as the PA announcer there. Can't you just hear Hurley say this? Like, look at all these effing people. They all hate you. They want you to lose. It's right. It's writing itself. It's beautiful. It's poetic. It's the end of. It's exactly what they need. It's incredible.
I know that the really four of you, I guess, right? Basically, because you're in New York. The four of you are Big East, Northeast guys. So I'm just going to ask you this as someone who's not. Where are you on the, and I'll make it clear where I stand. Where are you on the Hurley, trying to find, I know the plane thing, I'm going to give him full, he should be pissed off. Like, the plane thing is total horseshit. Like the fact that plane didn't make it till basically what was it, Wednesday or Thursday or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Dumb. However, I cannot, for the life of me, like I don't even figure out how to express it. I think I tweeted it. I think it's ridiculous to sit here and be like, he's never explicitly said some of this stuff, but it's like the us against the world. Nobody believes in us or whatever. I can't stand it. I just can't. When you're the number one team in the country, you've lost 3 freaking times. I can't stand it enough.
You're gonna get Tondo riled up about this. He's got a
Do you agree? Do you
yeah.
disagree though?
No, I agree. I think he's
thank
corny
God.
as hell.
Oh,
I
my
mean,
God.
UConn, I respect UConn as a program, and he is a hell of a coach. And Basil and I were talking about it before where, today was when he won the coach of the year this past week, all of the URI folks were coming around and saying like, hey, well, we found him first. I'm like, well, technically Wagner found him first. So shout out the NEC. But I do think there's a lot of his antics, especially I was so anti-Hurley against the fans, even though I think fans can be pretty nasty.
That was right. That was you that wrote that. That's right.
I was like, listen, you're a national
right.
champion coach. Like you have not lost a game in a minute. You're pounded on people. Let the players talk on the court. You don't need to turn around surrounded by 6 bodyguards saying, I'm going to kick your ass. I think that's corny as hell because not for nothing, Dan Hurley, you're like 5'10" and 180 soaking wet. Like you were going to get rocked by a lot of people in the Northeast.
I mean, if I can say this though, I am by no means a UConn fan. I do not find myself rooting for the Huskies very frequently. I don't necessarily feel like I'm rooting for them. I don't necessarily feel like I'm rooting for them tonight. But I feel like when you're Dan Hurley, it's the mentality that you have to adopt, right? Because yes, they are, they've been the number one team in the country pretty much all year. They're just flying through this tournament. And while it's silly for them to want to paint themselves as the underdog, it's like you have to, especially when you're coaching college athletes, right? Because look, there are guys that are on this roster that are really experienced, but for a lot of them, this is their first time being in this high pressure environment, and I don't think Hurley would want them to go into a tournament like this with the that's so funny. Put that back up there for a second. I don't think you'd want some of these younger, like less experienced guys to go in with this mentality of, oh, like we're the top dogs, like we're the best, because that's where these guys falter. I mean, you don't want them to get too comfortable. To an extent. I mean, you want, you don't want your guys to be playing in like a, toxic environment, but you don't want them to just, falter at any point. So I think it's a mentality that all these coaches have to build. And again, look, people are saying, this is obviously the number is exaggerated, but they're outnumbered 2-1, 3-1 in the stadium tonight. I'm sure if you did one of those like state by state map polls, right? It's like, who are you rooting for tonight? I'm sure UConn is going to be a small sliver in New England and the Northeast, and then the rest of the country is going to be all for Purdue. So yeah, or it'll be that one. So
is that DJ Burns? Oh my God!
Again, I think while the underdog mentality is a little silly, I think I don't think any athlete or coach or anybody is trying to psych themselves up by just going, oh, I'm the best, I'm going to do this. Like they have to be like, I have to kind of come through this adversity. I think it can really go either way.
Dorsa, you're aligned with 2 Big East schools, and I'm 99% sure I know how you feel about this, but I definitely want this on record. I know I asked the question outright, but what do you feel about this?
I just think a lot of coaches just do the whole like, oh, everyone doubted us thing. Like the fucking Chiefs try to do it too. It's like, yeah, I mean, what are we doing here? You guys were the favorites all season. You won the Super, whatever. Yeah, I don't know. My main take on Hurley is I will never forget how funny it was that our student section was chirping him. It was my sophomore year, so it was the year they lost to New Mexico State in the tournament. And he comes back. He goes to the locker room, then he comes back just to point at the student section and call us punk ass bitches and then walk back to the locker room.
It's just so corny. It's like, dude, it's like
There's no way that man would survive a day as the coach of Kentucky. He would not survive, and he knows it.
Like, at the end of the day, I know these big programs have a lot of adult fans. These are college kids that you're getting chirped by. These are 18 to 22-year-olds that you're getting chirped by. And you are literally threatening their lives after you, like, beat a team by 30. Like, how lame is that? I'm sorry, I just can't get over it. Now, again, no disrespect because he has talented-ass players and it's a historic-ass program. But him as a coach and a person, the second he starts mouthing off, I'm like, you are lame as can be, dude.
To be clear,
you are not an underdog. You are not a fighter. Just go be a coach.
UConn is not an underdog. I will get around that.
I love the Dan Hurley who takes the video call with the 3 trophies in the background and all the cut nets and him talking about his paintings. That's the coach. That's the Coach Hurley that people like and can rally behind. Him being this tough guy, like, oh, you know, I coached in New York one time for Wagner. It's like, all right, sick. Like, you're not, you don't have a tough bone in your body. Your brother and your father are more tough than you.
You know, it's kind of like it's Cooley energy when he said the other day, well, I won't get you riled. I'm really getting you riled up now. But no, when Cooley this year, when some guy was talking crap to him after Seton Hall beat him and goes, well, it's $7 million a win. And he looks at him and goes, I'm rich as shit. You know, mother effer, right? Like that
was a good that's a good line. That's a great line.
DeRosa.
That is a great line. Come on.
It's lame. It's so lame.
Come on.
Hashtag their resignation.
That was a good line. That was a good line.
You know what makes this reaction so funny is that your camera's frozen and you're just ponderous.
Yeah.
That's a no. Come back. No, that's a no context college basketball tweet. Go back. Put it back on. Do it.
Put it back on. Yes.
Do it. Yes. Right. No context college basketball's getting that one right now.
That could be our meme. That could easily be.
I'm so sad, man. We could have 2 this week, but freaking they were too scared and didn't want to do it. To be clear, by the way, up front, I did not think that was going to turn into that. My point was I didn't even think about all the yelling. Like, a good point bringing back up though, because it does go into that a little bit. Like, it does into the underdog yelling at the, like, whatever. Like, I was just referring to just how I know it's not what he probably really believes, but how he personifies, like, we're the underdog. And he's never, again, I don't think he's ever explicitly said it. It was just, it bothered me knowing that, like, they've lost 3 games. Like, it's just to chill with that. That was all.
That's one of those things. I think every team is, you know, they're most knowledgeable. Every team and fan base is most in tune to themselves, right? And we are looking at UConn right now as this juggernaut, but I'm sure, and you know, obviously none of us here are you know, UConn fans on this pod, but I'm sure we have a UConn fan on here or someone from the program, and they'll probably point out 1 or 2, you know, really tough spots in this season along the way. Every team probably can. So it's if the whole country is rooting against you, yeah, you probably feel like you probably feel a little bit of an underdog, but it's all relative. We're 25 minutes away from tip off. I know I'm trying to get ready for this game. Yeah. Does anybody have any final thoughts before we get into just final predictions?
I think I trust the data on this one most. Like, I'm right with Rhythm's AI model. Rhythm Zone AI, the one that I built on the Rhythm app, RITHMM. Go use the link in our collateral to go get your version now. This game really seems like it's going to be high scoring for some reason. Like, the surface level answer is there's a lot of offense, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, the couple of comments that we've got, and before I say it, it's from Grayson Hill. Give me the over on free throws tonight. I really do believe this game could be won and lost at the line. There it is. Thank you, whoever just put that up. So that's where my head's at. I think you're going to see a kind of down and dirty game with a lot of fouls, and that's sort of where I'm at. And with that, it's the over and it's UConn. That's what I've got.
All right, DeRosa, what you got for us? Oh, have we totally lost him?
We may have totally lost him.
Oh no! All right. Well, in the meantime, Trevor, how you feeling about this
I muted
one?
myself like an idiot. That's
Oh,
I just thought you were at the Darty outside. That's really
no, that was my fault. No, it's dead. Don't worry. They don't want me there. Everyone picked UConn. I'm gonna pick Purdue to cover. Fuck you guys.
It's fine. Purdue. All right. Hey, whatever.
If I win, I get to brag about everyone, and if I lose, I can just say I did it to be contrarian. So I'm gonna win-win. So take that.
You said a version of that for the women's games too, and were you right on that? I think you were.
No, BZ picked UConn, and
I thought we picked UConn.
Oh,
yeah, I think I picked UConn, and DeRosa said I'm picking Iowa, and I'm going to make all you guys look stupid, and you win. So
it doesn't work most of the time. Just so we're clear, going contrarian just to be like, ha, lose every time.
All right, Trevor, what you got for us?
I'm going to use the time that we have left, or my time that we have left before one of you mutes me, to use the fact that we have a platform to. Someone did it right then.
Yeah. Muted already.
The irony is we're all admins, so we can do it to each other the whole time. Thanks for being mature, everyone. All right, so my point is, here's the layout that I'm trying to put out here. I feel horribly about every single line that I see out there. Alternatives, I cannot sit here and tell you this is what I'm confidently picking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you that someone made this point earlier, and I'm just going to regurgitate it and make sure it's said even more so, is this game being at 9:20 on a Monday night when we have an opportunity to put the women's game right before the men's game and put them back-to-back on a Sunday afternoon. Guys, I know that literally this will never happen. The NCAA is too much of a money grab and TV and yada, yada, yada. However, I'm just using the platform that I was given to put it out there that that's how it should be. UConn wins by 10 or more.
All right. I like that.
I love the passion. I love it.
He just spoke straight facts. That should have been the end right there. I mean,
I agree with that.
I agree everything what he said. UConn
Mega Sunday.
The Mega Sunday makes so much sense, but you know what's the sad part about what Trevor just said is, and again, this is every sports, the next tournament, the next game, whatever, it's all about the money. It's never about the product on the court. It's all about who has the best commercials and TV rights and advertisements and all of this stuff and which players are going to get NIL. It's all about the cold, hard cash anymore rather than the passion of the game.
Well, with that, Tondo, how do you feel like this game's going to go?
Well, hopefully I benefit in that cash aspect with UConn winning by 10 or more points responsibly. Now I think it will. Honestly, though, I think this is, although it was the chalk the chalk championship 2-1s, I think it's going to be, I hope, the best game of the entire. I hope it's not a true blowout until the very end, so I can cover the 10 points. I hope, it is at least hard fought in the first half, and Zach Edey at least silence some haters.
Yeah, I think this one's going to be fun.
Zach Edey gets a lot of shit for someone being that good. He's been getting dragged online.
Yeah. Again, I don't get it. I said it on the Final Four preview show. I don't look, if you want to hate on Purdue just because they're the top dog, that's fine. I don't really see much about Zach Edey that you can really look. If you don't like the way his game is played, if you like a different style of basketball, that's fine. But yeah, that's true. That is very true. Yeah. But again, seems like a good guy. Fun style. I like the style of basketball that he plays. But yeah, it's really weird. But that being said, I don't think Purdue comes out on top in this one. I do think it is UConn. I think Dan Hurley just kind of, he completes the inevitable, takes some second championship in a row. And I'm going to go for this one. I'm going to go UConn. I think they're going to hit 80 points. And I'm going to go UConn 83, Purdue 75. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. It's not going to be a lot of three-point production, but I think UConn's going to kind of pull away, sometime around the second half under 8 media timeout. And that's it, guys. After that, in 2 hours, in about 2 hours, we'll have a national champion. It's been a great season. House of College Hoops has been coming at you all year long with great coverage. And don't think for a second that just because a team will cut down the nets tonight, that we do not have much more content on the way for you guys starting tomorrow and onwards throughout the offseason. We've got an ECB show coming at you guys tomorrow afternoon to recap the entire season. We're going to continue covering the transfer portal, the coaching carousel, all on our different platforms. So make sure you follow us on Twitter at College Hoops HE. Keep checking us out on our website on house-enterprise.com. Keep checking us out on our YouTube channel, House Enterprise. And for Trevor Everett, Will Tondo, Jake Zimmer, Mike DeRosa, I'm Sam Basil. This has been the House of College Hoops, and we'll see you guys next time.